welcome to this podcast from ASHA, the American Sexual Health Association. I'm Fred Wyand, ASHA's Director of Communications. We get no small amount of feedback from visitors to our site, and one theme we've been hearing a lot is the need for more sexual health advice. So as proof that we do listen and respond, ASHAsexualhealth.org has now launched Sextras, a selection of articles written by sexuality and relationship experts, and these articles are really meant to offer practical advice and tips and techniques for the bedroom and beyond. So in honor of the debut of Sextras, this edition of the ASHA podcast features a chat with Walker Thornton, who's written a number of the articles that we're featuring. She has a master's degree in educational psychology, and she writes extensively about sexuality, relationships, sexual health, and caregiving. And she also resides in one of the most beautiful places on earth, the lovely Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, where I was fortunate to spend a few years. Walker, thanks for taking the time to chat today.
Hi, Fred. Thank you. I'm tickled to be here.
Great. So, as I mentioned, the new collection of articles on the ASHA site they were selected to give folks sort of direct, practical advice on sexuality, sexual health, and sexual pleasure that folks can really use, so no highfalutin, treatise on sex and society, but more things like, to borrow from some of your articles we're offering, how to choose the right vibrator, learn how to become more orgasmic, and online dating chemistry. So in that vein of down to earth, how the heck do I deal with this? My first question to you is, what advice do you offer to couples who might be out of sync sexually, especially when levels of desire don't match?
That's a great question. And it comes up a lot. I think one of the first things I would say to a couple, whether I'm talking to one party or the other, is that you need to communicate with each other about what might be going on. Sometimes people are mismatched in terms of interest in sex from the beginning, and then sometimes our levels change. There might be stressors in our lives, or for women going through menopause or coming out of pregnancy. Things that happen to our bodies can affect our interest in having sex. So the very first place I think for a couple to start is to talk to each other, to figure out is this just something that's always been here, or is one of the two people involved going to be able to say, I'm just exhausted right now. My job is so tough. I just don't have time for sex. Or I don't feel like it. And then the conversation is open to say, well, what could we do differently? Maybe we should pick a time. Do you want to go away for a weekend? Or have the beginning of that conversation so that the two of them can figure out if there's simple things that can be changed. Lots of times it's not something simple. And then that, again, conversation, how do we deal with this? Understanding that it's an issue for both people. I had a woman come to me who said that her husband wanted sex much more often than she did, and her response to me was that she told him she would try to take care of him, putting that in quotes, on a regular basis. That's a situation that sets up resentment, I think. Who wants to take care of someone? It felt more like an obligation. And so we had some conversation about her setting aside specific times to be with him. And I also suggested that she take time to self-pleasure, to sort of begin to feel more aroused at various times, with the hope that that might change things around for them. Those are a couple of examples. It's going to be different for every couple.
Sure, and it sounds like the reason for the couple maybe being in different places in terms of desire, the reasons for that can really vary. It may be just something as simple as a stressful work day, or it may be something much more significant. But either way, it looks like communication is really the way to kind of go after it.
I think so. I think communication is the answer to almost every single question we might ask about sex. If we're not really talking with our partner, or even to ourselves, if we can't imagine talking to a partner, writing it down, sort of verbalizing it somehow, that's sort of, to me, the key in how two people can begin to figure out alternatives, or we're going to address it, I think, in the next question. But it's key. It really is.
So what about when the sex life in a relationship gets a bit stale? What are tips for breathing some excitement into a sexual relationship that may not really be a bad relationship, but it could just use some freshening up?
Right. Great question. And since I mostly tend to write for and interact with middle-aged people, I hear this more often. And even if sex is good, or it has always been satisfactory, say, we get into a rut. And then it becomes, okay, so I'm going to go to bed, and he's going to do this for 2 seconds, and then I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and then we're done. So novelty, trying to find something a little fun and a little different. I think part of that is, again, talking, being able to say comfortably to a partner. Maybe if you all are both drinkers, you're having a glass of wine, and say, I'd like to try something different. What do you think we fill in the blank? And maybe one of the two people share the fantasy. I've always thought it might be fun to do this. Or I, for example, have this fantasy about wanting to have sex on my back deck. I know, it's pretty back there, and I think going outside and having sex on the deck would be kind of fun. So the challenge for me then is to share that with a partner and say, this is what I'd like to try. Another way to sort of put some spark into this is to think of a sexual experience as something that happens over a longer period of time, so that you maybe do a little sexting or sexy texting. I don't necessarily mean sending photos, but you send your partner a quick little note. Thought about you this morning as I browsed through the lingerie drawer trying to figure out what to wear today, or can't wait to see you tonight. Maybe you'll pop in the door with a big kiss, and it can get as sexy as you want, but it begins to set the stage for something a little exciting. It's out of the ordinary. A love note in the lunch bag, maybe, or in a briefcase. Trying to figure out new things that happen during the day, so that you don't just have sex after dinner, right before you go to bed, right after you've watched NCIS. That sex becomes something we do when we love and nuzzle up against each other as we walk by each other in the morning, or we sort of expand what sex means and how it can happen. Talking to women, but what could men do as well to start that conversation? Looking across the breakfast table at your partner and saying, I really find you hot. I want to have some playtime. Would go a long way for either one in terms of making them feel sort of excited, pleased to know that we're still attracted to each other, and then makes one feel more interested in getting more.
So when you mentioned that these techniques work for men and women, that is a perfect segue to my next question. So imagine you're teaching a class of sex and pleasure. What are the things one absolutely must know to excite and satisfy first a female partner?
Okay. And I was kind of coming at that last question. So my answer is a fairly heteronormative one. Based on the assumption, I think, that men understand men and women understand women. So in same-sex or same-gendered partnership, it might be a little easier to know these things. What does a man need to know about a woman?
Right.
The very first thing I think most men need to know is we take more time to reach arousal. I heard someone say at a conference last month that a woman can take up to 20 minutes to become fully aroused, whereas a man, sometimes it just takes a minute or two. It just depends.
If that long.
Yeah, truly. A glance, and there we are. It takes women longer, and men need to know that. really absolutely need to know that. So that means that the approach to whatever kind of sex you want to have needs to start slowly and to build up. We like to go a little slower. We need to be brought to arousal, and that can happen in different ways. Rushing in and starting to touch genitalia is not necessarily the best way to get us sort of excited and ready to go. Sweet words, hugs beforehand, touching the body, arms, nipples, kissing. Women like kissing, and it can be effectively used. So know that it takes more time. Taking more time, particularly for older couples as well, can be important for women in increasing the natural lubrication process. Because as our bodies get aroused, that's where lubrication begins to start. At any age range, I mean, as women get older, they may lubricate less, but arousal helps to build that. So take it slower for women. Men absolutely need to know that, I don't know, the numbers vary, statistics, anywhere from 10 to 30% of women can have an orgasm through just intercourse alone. So that means that the vast majority of women need other stimulation. So man absolutely needs to understand a woman's clitoris, where it is, how she likes it touched, what kinds of things he can do with her and for her, and to understand that clitoral stimulation is really going to get her aroused and is going to provide her with more pleasure. So reading some books, reading some articles, but understand that too. And I think it would be helpful for men if you understood that in lovemaking with a woman, a man can learn more about his partner, and this holds for any partner, I think, by listening to their body, watching the body, being aware of things. Is the breathing changing? Do her hips sort of rise up to you? If it's easy to sort of take that old idea of men and women just come together to have intercourse. He sticks it in, takes a couple of minutes, they're done. Slowing down that process, becoming more intimate, using all the senses, hear how her breathing sounds, look at her body. Is she flushing? Are her genitals, are her labia beginning to swell, which is a sign of arousal? Really paying attention, not just sort of going on automatic and just kind of doing what you've always done, but listening and looking and talking. If that's something your partner likes. Not all women or men either are comfortable with the talking. But that's how you really get there, is pay attention to her body. Give it a lot of attention and watch and listen to see what she likes. Hear the moans, feel the arch back. All those things are indicators of arousal, and make the other person a better partner, a better lover when they can hear that. Those would be the absolutes, I think.
Very good. So let's turn that around. What kind of information does someone need to know to really take care of the guy that they're cuddling with?
Yeah. That was a harder one for me to answer, actually. And maybe that's just the difference between being in a female body. I think we have this notion, women have this notion that men don't come to physical relationships, intimate relationships, with a lot of emotions around it. And I think we're absolutely wrong. Men want to know that they are performing well. They want to know that they're satisfying women. And I think that if women would spend a little more time telling their partner how much they like what he does and what they would like more of, and letting that person know that he pleases them, that gives a sense of well-being that communicates itself through sex. So I think it's important to be able to let our partner know that he pleases us, because it also sets up the situation for you to show and talk about how you could like more pleasure. and other ways that you enjoy that might be better than, you don't need to say that, but that helps make the two of you work together. Respond to him. Women we weren't raised, particularly those of us who are older, to be the leader in bed, to be very responsive. So sometimes women take more of a passive role. And men like to know that the woman that they're making love with is engaged and excited. So showing them what you like, making little sounds, giving little gestures. Yes, I like this. Yes, whatever language or signal you use, but being responsive, so sort of being more actively engaged in the sex act. I think women need to understand the male anatomy. We need to understand where the sensitive parts of the penis are, what feels good. Does a man like his testicles touched? If we just sort of take this assumption that it's just a tool by which to achieve ejaculation and conceive babies, we've missed out on all of this stuff. And if we understand where the most sensitive spot on the head of a man's penis is, then we have a tool to bring a little surge of excitement when we want. We have to, I think it's only fair if we want men to understand our bodies, that we need to understand theirs in a way that no one has really ever taught us to, because that's just kind of beyond where sex education is ever going.
Walker Thornton, sexuality and relationship expert, newly minted author on ashasexualhealth.org. Thanks. That was just excellent. As I was listening to you, I was sort of doing a mental checklist of some new resources we might need to develop, like something about anatomy lessons for each gender. Walker, thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this, and let's do this again sometime. As new topics come up, I'd love to chat with you again if you have time.
I'd love to do it. That'd be a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
As always, thanks to everyone who downloads and listens to this podcast. We will have more to come, so check back often. We're online again at ashasexualhealth.org, and of course, follow us on Twitter. We're at InfoAsha, and be our friend on Facebook. You can also sign up on the website to receive Asha's update emails, and we'll let you know what's happening in the world of sexual health, including new resources as we roll them out, including podcasts and articles from Walker Thornton. So until next time, this is Fred Wyand signing off. And remember, the most important sexual organ is not between your legs, it's between your ears. So long, everybody.